All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. You are listening to Honest to God. Super pumped to be here today. Feeling great. We got all veterans returning. We got Miriam. We got Murphy. We got Grace. We got Drew. We got producer Ben with some Mountain Dew Code Red.
Oh, yeah, it's the best.
And then oddly enough, where there's normally an endless void, there just seems to be a ever-expanding barren desert with a sign that says, I am Ozymandias, King of Kings. Behold my works, ye mighty, and despair. So I don't know what that's about, but I assume show notes are going to be produced by it. So there may or may not be show notes, Benny, somewhere behind a dune. But today we are talking about music, which I'm very excited about. And before we get started, before you each give us your one fun fact, which if you're all fun fact about personal stuff out, you can just give us a fun fact. It can be anything. Did you know that armadillos only give birth to identical quadruplets? I didn't know that. Did you know that German immigrants to the United States called armadillos Panzerschwein? Isn't that a fun fact?
That's
you can
awesome.
do something like that if you want to, too.
That's a lot of armadillo facts.
I read a lot of armadillo.
Specific genre of
I'm
fact.
super into weird things, and I went on like an armadillo rabbit hole.
Like a Wikipedia, just down the Wikipedia
yeah,
page.
Kind of. And I got, but it was fun. So anyway, anybody want to lead us in prayer? Murph, you're the man. Thanks, boss.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to come here and talk about various topics, in this case, music. Topic that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. And so, Lord, we just ask that you bless this conversation and allow us all to have a fun time in doing so. And let it all be for your greater glory. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. All right, short and sweet. That was good.
Beautiful.
All right, fun fact. Start with Miriam. What you got?
My fun fact is that one of my favorite bands when I was around 8 or 9 years old was a heavy metal band called Blind Guardian, and they had an album called Nightfall in Middle Earth, and it was about the Silmarillion. It was my favorite thing ever. I've listened to that album more times than I can count.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah.
All right, what was the name of the band?
Blind Guardian.
Okay, Nightfall in Middle Earth?
Nightfall in Middle Earth, yeah.
All right, I dig it.
Feels like you don't want your guardian to be blind. This
one was.
Am I crazy?
I'm sorry, we're not all perfect, Murph.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Fun fact. Oh, sorry. My name's Murphy Givens. Was there other stuff or just your name and fun fact?
No, just fun fact.
Okay. Armadillos carry leprosy.
All of them, almost. It's weird. Ooh. And I learned this the other day. Leprosy is an old world disease that they don't think was present in the New World, which means when Europeans showed up, somebody gave leprosy to an armadillo who then somehow gave it to all the other armadillos. They don't know how that works. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
So if you're out there and you're eating an armadillo, you got to make sure you cook it all the way through or you will almost definitely get leprosy.
Do people eat them?
I mean, you can. Here's another armadillo fact.
Good?
During the Great Depression, they referred to them as Hoover hogs because so many people were hunting and eating armadillos because they didn't have any food. And so a lot of people ate them. I don't know if they got leprosy. This episode is actually brought to you by the Armadillo Conservation Fund. It's recently been renamed the Armadillo Expansion Fund. The idea is not to conserve armadillos, but to have them be the primary vertebrae on planet Earth. So they're really just rapidly expanding. See them. It's horribly destructive to the environment. But this episode of Honest God is brought to you by armadillos. Grace.
All right. Yeah, I'm Grace. And my fun fact today is that I have over 20 bug bites on my body right now.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Did you count them? You actually know that?
Well, I know there's more than I stopped when I got to 20. I said, that's enough.
Oh, my gosh. Wait, you should have stopped when you got to 21.
Well, I know there are more.
Okay. All right. I trust you. No, that's great.
I mean, yeah.
No, we believe you.
Good.
Drew, what you got?
Dang, I really don't have anything. Can I grab one of the popsicles or do they really have to come up with
No, you got to come up with it, man. Those popsicles are sacred till the end of the show. Animal facts.
It has to be an animal fact?
No, it can be anything. But I'm just going to
animal facts are great. Fawns lose their spots when they mature into an adult deer.
That's true.
Fact.
Cool. That's true. Yeah.
If someone didn't know that, but we live in Georgia, so we're probably kind of seeing that around.
Yeah. Also another fun fact. Don't ever assume they're abandoned. They're not abandoned. They're fine. The moms leave them there on purpose for hours at a time to go eat, and then they come back and nurse them. So you're not rescuing a fawn. You're kidnapping a fawn, and its life is going to be a lot harder and it might die. So don't be a jerk. Leave the baby deer where it is.
Another fun fact about fawns is most of them do not wear pants.
That is true. I'm not going to say all because I don't like to speak in absolutes unless it's absolutely necessary. But
use some caution.
But yeah, the vast majority, from what I'm aware, fawns don't wear pants. a plurality at least. You know,
For sure.
Ben, did you have anything? You look
Oh,
like.
yeah, I've got one.
Do you?
In Switzerland, you are not allowed to buy one guinea pig. You must buy two. So that is not
'Cause it's
lonely.
social.
Aw.
That's a good rule. I like
In
that.
Peru, you can eat guinea pigs.
Wow.
You can eat guinea pigs anywhere if you're brave enough and
That's fair.
not concerned with social norms.
Hey, as long as you eat two of them in Switzerland.
Yeah, it should be fine. All right, great. So we're not going to talk about animal fun facts all day today. Instead,
Take a moment.
we are going to dive into music. And when I walked in here and sat down, as you guys know, I'm a fastidious, detail-oriented show prepper. But today I sat down and I found out that the whole show had been prepped for me. So
Yeah.
I would love to get into it. And let's go with a hierarchy, right? Let's start with, was it Grace? Were you the one who wanted to talk about sacred music to begin with?
Yeah, sort of. I wasn't going to specifically talk about sacred music, but how music can be sacred. So kind of taking a step back from that idea and that perspective, kind of just looking at how music, and I know we've talked about this on the show before, but music and its beauty can elevate our minds and hearts and can definitely be a form of prayer. The first one that comes to mind for me is praise and worship. That's like one of the first ways that I feel like my heart responds in prayer is through music, through songs, and praising the Lord for all he's done in my life. But when we were talking earlier, I mentioned to Miriam that even, just uplifting music in general can be either a form of prayer or just a good practice in your life to add, to the quality of just, your everyday.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to add any, points on?
I absolutely agree with you. Praise and worship music is phenomenal. Something about music in a communal environment just elevates not only the other people and the listener, but the music itself. There's something really incredible about that.
Is that always true?
Not always true,
Okay.
but it's incredibly regular. Even bad songs played loud enough or with enough people around you become incredibly enjoyable.
I want to dig into that.
facts.
Yeah,
That's
let's talk
facts.
about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can dig into that, but even just the concept that there are certain Christian songs, or not, I'm not going to put that in air quotes. There's Christian songs that are just they're almost made to be heard, and then there's Christian songs that are made to be sung, with other people,
Okay.
and made to be an act of worship to God. My favorite praise and worship album is the Live from the Banks House with Will Reagan.
Okay.
It goes crazy because it's just a bunch of people in a room praising God. So there's just that polyphony. There's the polyphony of just voices singing to God, and it's just really it's really beautiful.
So and this is, once again, we can go down whatever rabbit hole we want to, but my opinion that does not reflect the opinion of Honest to God or AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic radio, is that Christian music and country music in the last 50 years have both gone down the exact same path of sort of this revamp that is made that serves to make it more palatable for mass consumption at the expense of depth. And once again, I think there's a lot of relativism in music in general, it's subjective taste wise. And so, but the criticism that I've never been a big Christian music guy, but you hear about this a lot with country music. People talk about this a lot where you sort of go into the more bro country that's made for big stadiums and whatever. And to make it more palatable to the general audience, a lot of the depth and soul and whatever has been stripped out.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of a lot of times when I turn on the radio to the local Christian pop station.
And I think that's definitely true. I mean, but maybe I'm not the perfect person to speak of this because I agree with the whole country thing. I'm a Tyler Childers, Coulter Wall, Zach Bryan kind of guy. So it's that's still that broken aspect to it, the not perfect sound. It's this you could get pretty much the same sound if a bunch of dudes just brought their instruments into a bar.
Yeah.
So that kind of music I think really speaks to me in general, and maybe that's because I'm a performer as well. Maybe not. I don't know, but I feel like that translates to praise and worship. Where I actually had a weird conversation with a friend of mine, Nino Castellano, where we talked about the similarities between praise and worship and going to a pub and listening to Irish music.
Okay. Yeah.
Very different object and objective, but the concept of the community that's built around going and singing, like you said, songs just really loudly, even if they're really terrible songs, they're just not well.
Sometimes they're the best songs. Going back
They're
to
great.
communal aspect.
Yeah, and
me and my son have been getting really into sea shanties lately.
Yeah.
For that reason, because they're great to just belt
Love
out
me some
together in the
sea
car.
shanties.
Yeah.
Big
I
time.
remember there was a point where me and my brothers were camping one time, and we all ended up in like the big bathhouse in the middle of the campground, and then we were just like all at the exact same moment knew exactly what sea shanty to sing because the acoustics were just perfect.
Yeah.
And we all broke out into song. It was
Wow.
like one of the most like brotherly moments ever.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about going in that direction, but I like this. I like the theme of music as a communal thing, as something that bonds humans.
I think it's something that is essentially meant to be shared. You don't really,
Yeah.
I don't think you write a song and sing it to yourself and that's the end of it. I mean, I'm sure there are artists who have many songs that they're never going to show anyone, but they want to write music that is to be shared. I think it's something that is a collective human experience.
Well, yeah.
Very true.
What is it about our humanity that makes us like? Okay, maybe music is a symptom of our draw to community by virtue of our humanity. I don't know.
I can see what you're saying.
There might also be something to be said about the fact that we are co-creators. It was something you were mentioning earlier.
That's a Tolkien cut right there. we just got
The
into.
fact
Yeah.
that like, you know, we long to imitate, I guess, our God in creation of beauty, whether that's through art, music, you know, whatever creative outlet you like. I think that is one of the reasons why music is made. And then for the benefit of the community, the rest of like the body of Christ, and to be able to share beauty that leads us to God.
Yeah. What I think is really cool too is like I forget. I think it's a document from the USCCB called "Sing to the Lord," but they're talking about like the parameters of music and like the liturgy today. And it's like honestly, like no offense to them, it's a pretty boring document. And I say that because I've read like a document.
What the USCCB is producing uninteresting documents.
You read Laborum Exergens and like, which is the Exergens or whatever, which is like the economics document from
Right.
Pope John Paul II, and you're like crying, and then you read this.
That's
and
a
you're
great
like,
point.
I don't get it, but it's fine. But it's no, but it's a great document though, and it really lays everything out very clearly. And one of the things it mentions is like the purpose of music in the liturgy is actually to better represent one of the ways, because there's, I forget the number, but there's certain number of ways Christ is presented in the Mass. And one of those is the body of Christ being gathered together and communally celebrating the Eucharist.
Right.
And so the idea that we're able to all sing the same words and be essentially, even if we're not really thinking about it, like be able to have a unified mind and heart and be able to sing as one body of Christ in praise of Christ, whether that's just the Mass parts or whether it's the hymns or whatever songs they choose and that kind of stuff. But
Oh, that's beautiful.
So,
it goes crazy.
and this might, some people can disagree with me. That leads me to a really important question that I wrote down. Why is the Gather hymnal so horrible and lame?
I don't know. I didn't write
Nature
it.
of music. I don't know.
No, but I think there's a right answer to it. I just don't know what it is. Because we all know there's like, and this show is not made for our, maybe some of our older generations of audiences, but there was definitely a time in the 70s when everybody decided we're going to make our music all modern. And what that meant was we're going to make it so horrible in mass. And I'm not saying that modern music is bad. I'm saying that strain that came from that time.
It's like they modernized it and then they never continued to modernize it.
Right.
And that was almost the problem. They might have just done it once and said, all right, we'll stop there.
Yeah.
No, but I agree. But like, I think it's interesting though, because I don't know. I think because of that, at least for me growing up, I was never very much into like church music.
Right.
Eventually, I like found like praise and worship and kind of like contemporary Christian music and that kind of stuff. But like, I have a friend who I worked with last summer at a summer camp, Annunciation Heights, and she really like showed me like a lot of like hymns and stuff, which I would just like ultimately like wasn't familiar, and we kind of got to like revamp them like praise and worship style. Which is cool. But it's like there's just some beautiful words that are written. Like Come Thou Font like has some crazy awesome words in it, like just the lyrics alone. And Praise God from whom all blessings flow, or the doxology. Just fire.
So
Awesome.
a common criticism, and something that I understand, right? And I think I would posit this to some extent, is that there comes a point where music in the mass is a detriment, right?
Sure.
When music in the
When
mass
it's
is
bad.
taking away from the sacrifice, or even if it's incredible, but
Too
it's
good,
like
yeah.
a rock song, right?
Just one church, they start
And
getting the
that's-
chimes in there.
Yeah.
Going crazy.
Yeah. What is that? How do we find that line? Because it's one of those things where I know it when I'm experiencing it, when I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, clearly we're just here for the aggrandizement of this band, and it's a band. I feel like I'm at a show,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not here to celebrate the sacrifice of the Mass and the Eucharist. What's the litmus test for that? Do we have one?
It's
I don't
hard.
think there is, due to the hugely subjective nature of music.
Okay.
And the progression over the last 50, 60 years of how music is consumed by the masses, that it makes it extremely, extremely hard to find that in between, because it doesn't really exist in the same way that it used to at one point. There was a large time period for hundreds of years where loud music had to be experienced within the church.
Right.
There was no other way to listen to music on a concert level.
Like technologically, you're saying we couldn't
Exactly.
do it.
You only had church organs, and that was the loudest instrument. That would fill the town from how loud it was due to the acoustics of the churches and everything. And that's a barrier that's only been broken extraordinarily recently. And that, coincided with the huge music boom of the 60s and 70s. And so we're still finding a way to consume music and appreciate music as a culture, and that's why it's so varied in so many directions, and there's so many different types, so many
Sure.
ways to make music.
Yeah.
So the litmus test, I don't think exists. It might come back in the future, but for now, there's not. I love choral chanting, and I love organs, so I'm lucky here, but I completely understand. Some of it is non-palatable.
Yeah,
Seriously.
no, I totally agree.
I think there's I guess it's hard to define where the line is, but I feel like there's definitely a point where it stops being part of the service. It starts branching into a performance.
Right.
And that's where it starts feeling like it's taking away from the rest of the experience, which is supposed to be directing worship and attention towards God. When it starts kind of taking that attention away and being like, oh, I'm at a performance now. These people are like, the drums and everything is just kind of just distracting and detracting from the service. I feel like there is a difference. It's hard to draw the line exactly.
There's
But I feel like it is there.
I think context is also big. I didn't mean to speak over you, so you can continue. But like, just like I've been at masses in like bigger like gymnasiums, like with the Steubenville conference, and it's like obviously more naturally loud, and they have like a full band, and it's never felt to me like that's out of place.
Okay.
But then you go to a church and you have a band with like full drums, and like sometimes it's just like the way it's being done. But so I think context has a lot to do with it, and like kind of just like this prudence that isn't always present. I'm speaking as someone who's also done music for masses.
Well, and that's what I want to ask, because I mean, I think we can all agree that when the music is overshadowing the mass itself, right? The music should always be there to
Secondary.
uplift and assist, but it's secondary.
Yeah,
Exactly.
to beautify the liturgy and nothing more.
So, as somebody who performs in masses, I assume you've done masses.
Yeah.
Right. How do you do that respectfully? How do you do that well? How do you purposely take the back
Yeah.
seat?
I think part of it's instrumentation, honestly. That's my perspective, but also again with the context, like keeping in mind where you're at, the audience you're playing to. Like I play up at Franciscan, so like they're all pretty used to stuff. So having cajon and mass, like a drum, it's not going to be that crazy to them.
Sure.
But also like just making sure that you like keep in mind that context, and then also like one thing I'm very big on is always making sure that you personally are praying with your music.
Oh, that's interesting.
And like regardless of your ability to maintain mental focus and to actually pray through your music, the Lord's going to work through whatever you're giving him. But like, I always make it a really big point that like, I mean, obviously whenever we pray and we're like intentionally calling the Lord, it's going to make whatever we're doing more efficacious and like more effective. And so like, this is more specific to praise and worship, but I think it carries into the mass too, of like when I'm playing praise and worship and when I'm doing music during mass, it's like, where's my focus at? And I think that does almost spiritually like translate into what people hear,
right?
Because I've been in situations where I've like been out of it, and I feel like I'm unable to connect, and like it's still good, but then I've been in situations where I've been able to really pray through like the whole night or through like the whole mass,
right?
And people typically will, like, those are the masses where people come up to you and they're like, hey, great job. Like, there was something going on. And it's like, you're correct. There was. I was having at one time, I lost my voice. This is during a praise and worship thing, but I was just literally just playing guitar, and I was in the back like crying, like because I didn't have to sing,
beautiful.
so I was just like, yeah, it was great. But I think people can tell when you're playing to the Lord and when He's the focus.
What do you say to people who would say that there's no place for praise and worship music in the Mass? Because there's a healthy contingent of more traditionalist Catholics. And one thing that I think that I always come back to is, and as I've gotten older, I've come to understand this better and better, is that liturgical preference does not equal orthodoxy. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean that it's evil and bad and whatever. And I don't want to straw man and paint anybody who says, I don't want a guitar in Mass, because I count myself in that camp. I don't like guitar in Mass. I don't know why. Like, I'm not saying it's evil. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't like it, right? It's a preference thing. What do you say to people who would take that a step further, though, and say, no, there's no, that is, you're, I don't know if I'm going to say sinful, but it's inappropriate, it's scandalous to be performing praise and worship in Mass.
Well, I mean, I would say, there's certainly praise music during Mass. Unless if you're completely taking every element of music out of the Mass, even like old hymns, Gregorian chant.
Yeah, let's say I'm saying there's only Gregorian chant. That's the only thing that's okay in Mass.
Okay.
I'm not.
So at some point in time, Gregorian chant was created.
A brand spanking.
And formed. Yeah, that was new. And it was
Gregorian chanting hippies ruining our liturgy.
And obviously, though,
when polyphony
Gregorian chant, no one can deny that there is a very solemn element of respect to that kind of music. So I think kind of starting from a point of like, okay, well, we can agree at some point you can introduce music into the Mass, and then going from there, it needs to be respectful. Okay, well, what does that mean for you, and what does that mean like objectively? And like you said, people are going to have different preferences, but I think I would like to see people be more understanding and accepting of different kinds of music, so long as it isn't inherently disrespectful. Like it is.
Yeah.
Glorifying
Here's
God.
my real opinion. I think that I don't like praise and worship in Mass, but I think it's so stupid that we count that in with 1,000 other petty squabbles we have amongst us as Catholics when it does not matter, right? And I don't have to go to that Mass, or I can say, okay, this isn't my thing, but maybe the kind of Mass I like isn't your thing, and that's okay. Let's get over this. We have bigger issues to deal with.
Right.
My thing is, when I go to Mass, like the music is probably one of the least important parts of why I'm there.
Good. That's right.
Not,
Ordered.
if not.
Yeah. Right.
Unless like I'm on the schedule, in which case it's maybe why I'm at that Mass.
Right.
But like, I go to praise my Lord and like receive Him in the Eucharist, and like the music is 100% secondary. It's awesome. It beautifies the liturgy, like whatever. But ultimately, it comes second.
Yeah, I agree. I really hate how we as Catholics, especially as Catholics who take this seriously, right? The kind of Catholics who will come on a Catholic radio show or will listen to our Catholic podcast, right? People who clearly care about their faith will squabble endlessly over all these little nitpicky things, right? To say, no, I'm actually holier than you because I feel this way about this thing. The petty squabbles they're lame.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Miriam?
Well, I kind of want to maybe shift the focus a little bit and talk about, okay, we obviously love music. We're trying to talk about it in context of the Mass, but I kind of want to shift it out a little more broadly and talk about, as Catholics, what do we believe music is for, and how does that translate into how we should listen to it and what we should think about it, and how we're supposed to filter it?
Awesome.
I've had many conversations with different Catholics who have this, what I believe to be a very superstitious view, which is that there are some genres of music or some bands or some songs that no Catholics should be allowed to listen to.
ABBA.
Take that.
That is a joke.
Right now.
We all want to be the dancing queen. Only 17. All right, sorry, go ahead.
And I just think this is a great platform to talk about this, because I've met far too many Catholics who have this sadly very like fearful approach, not just to music, but to other things as well. But primarily I've seen it with music, which is this like, oh no, if I'm in the store and there's like a rock song playing, that's like dangerous for my soul.
Oh wow, I've never,
Or if I'm like actively listening to, rock or heavy metal or rap or anything like that, then it's going to subtly influence my soul and my behaviors in ways that I don't understand, but it's actually damaging to me.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I am not going to disagree with you if you say, I found that when I listen to these types of songs with these types of lyrics or with these types of instrumentation, it bothers me, it agitates me, or it incites some baser passion in me that I would rather stay away from. So I'm cutting that music out of my life. I don't listen to it. I have no problem with someone saying that. It's when it turns into, and you shouldn't either,
Got you.
that I have a problem with it. And
Right.
there are a lot of Catholics and Christians, unfortunately, who are trying to discourage other Christians where it might not be a problem for them, and saying that this is a moral problem and your soul is in danger if you listen to these types of
So
music.
let me clarify what you're saying. Then we're about to take a break, and I wanted to really dig into this when we get back. But you're saying that genres are not inherently evil. You're not saying that content is not. Are you saying that the issue is with
Music is not inherently evil.
But if I were to say, here's a song that I just pulled that's about whatever horrible, debased thing, are you saying that can be okay for you, but not for me? Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. That's,
I think I disagree. I want to dig into that a little bit. I think,
Sure, yeah.
I think I would argue that there's no such thing as an evil genre of music. There's personal preference regarding genres that might affect you differently than it affects me.
Right.
And I should be prudent with that.
Sure.
But I would argue that there's absolutely some songs that's content and lyrics or something that is not fit for human consumption. Can we get into this a little bit? Because you said something I thought was super interesting, and I want to dive in and dig it up.
yes.
A little bit.
So I guess maybe a little bit of context of where I'm coming from. My dad has been listening to and kind of just really steeping himself into music for 30 years, meaning not just listening to it, but looking into the history, its context with other genres, how it's developed over time. He does reviews. He's part of a lot of different communities that write about music consistently. He's just very much steeped in it, constant exploration, understanding what it is, why it's important, all of these different things. And so he found it really important to share that knowledge with us when we were growing up. So I've probably listened to at least one album from every major genre that's like popular. So I mean, like everything from heavy metal to jazz to pop to, I don't know, just a bunch of different stuff. And
Yanni.
I don't
Big
know.
Yanni fan. You know what Yanni is?
Honey,
Oh, Yanni. Come on. Somebody here, nobody knows who Yanni is? All right, never mind.
my dad might know.
Okay.
But so he found it really important to impart to us the importance of music and the beauty and the power of enjoying and appreciating it. But I discovered when I was a little older that there are some people that think that there are certain types of music that you shouldn't be allowed to listen to, whether it's rap, hip hop, usually some form of secular music. And they think that like only classical and Gregorian chant are true good forms of music and all others are like perversions or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. And I would totally disagree with that premise.
Yes, and I disagree with that because I think music is subjective in nature. And I don't think that you can say that there's something universal about a song or a genre or a band that makes it so that no Catholics can listen to it. First, because the Catholic has no official teaching on what bad music you might not be allowed to listen to. And if you're making the argument that there's some music that's literally harming your soul, meaning morally, it's not just it's not a physical thing. It's literally harming your soul. The Catholic would be required to have material on that telling you exactly what types of music to avoid in order to not be putting your soul in danger.
Yeah, and I agree with you that I don't think that there's anything inherently evil about any genre. That being said, I cannot make the argument, I cannot understand the argument that it is okay or that it's morally beneficial or even morally neutral to listen to certain songs. I'm not saying that about artists. I'm not saying that about genres, but I'm saying the content, I would argue that the content of certain songs is detrimental to us. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Isn't there a list of books that are banned?
No, that's not a thing anymore.
Oh.
They used to be that, and then they were like, you know what? You have reason. You can read them, but like they're not good. You probably shouldn't.
Okay, so then I guess that kind of goes to support.
That's how I feel about the
Marian's
songs. I don't think it should be banned. I just think that you should totally not listen to them.
Yeah, because it's the messages that they're sending too. And I guess there is relativity in that as well. I mean, I suppose if you don't speak the language of a song, but the words are completely vulgar, you won't
That's a great
understand
point.
that.
Right.
And I guess then just the musicality shows. But that being said, I think for most of us, the kind of music we'd be, debating about is music that we do understand and that maybe isn't morally like uplifting, but could be maybe argue.
So I guess here's my. I want to go back on something I said a minute ago. I said I don't think certain songs or certain whatever should be banned. I'm going to take that back. No, I think we should absolutely, because I feel like pornography should be banned, even amongst adults, right? I think that there's certain content that should be outright banned, and I can't. Help me understand. I'm not attacking you, Miriam. I'm just trying to suss this out. Help me understand why, and maybe you don't think there's a distinction, but what the distinction is between I should not watch two people participate in sexual activities with one another, and I shouldn't listen to grotesque descriptions of sexual activity that are put to some beat. Like, what's the distinction?
Pornography is inherently degrading to human dignity. Music is sound waves. It's organized
Pornography's light
sound.
waves.
But
It's organized sound, and not everyone listens to music the same way. For instance, my dad does not pay attention to lyrics when he's listening to music. He might look into the lyrics afterwards, but he generally is paying attention to the musical aspect only, and that includes vocals, but it doesn't necessarily include the words. So he can listen to something that's absolutely foul and filled with horrible language, and it's not going to bother him in the same way.
Can I watch pornography for the plot line?
No.
Okay. I'm not
Game
trying
of
to
Thrones
make it
proof
joke,
of that.
but no, but I mean that's an example, right? Okay, I don't want to monopolize. What are y'all's thoughts?
Well, one thing that I think is interesting, so like one of the words you use is like music, and I'm gonna like, since we're discussing this in the context of like pornography in the sense that you could call that a movie or a film if you dare. I don't classify pornography as art, but like I'm gonna use art very loosely here. Sure. Like if we're talking about art being subjective, I think that is true. But I don't think so art is subjective, morality isn't. So like morality is objective. And when we introduce these moral concepts into a song, like we still have these, like, so in terms of like art purely, there's nothing wrong with the art, but there is something wrong with what we're putting into the art. Also on a very basic level, as a writer, like my sister can attest to this, every once in a while, I'll swear in a song and she'll be like, why'd you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. And I suddenly like feel like a terrible artist. I'm like, I couldn't think of another word to put there.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, it's not just about language, because I'm of the opinion that like a swear word doesn't necessarily ruin a song.
Right.
And even pretty bad swear words, I think there are certain words that obviously have sexual connotation. I would say most of those pretty quickly ruin a song.
Right.
But in general, I think an interesting thing to look at is the moral context of the song. Like there is such a thing. Like if I had a friend who was just constantly talking with me and having like really horrible conversations, I would ask him to stop having like horrible conversations with me, because I'd be like, this isn't beneficial for me to listen to this all the time. And even if I just tune him out, like it doesn't, like, it's still not like greatly uplifting to the soul. Like, I don't know if that's a great analogy, but like that's sort of where my mind goes with that, is that like I don't want to put in things that I don't actually believe. Now again, maybe that's me versus someone else, but in general, like especially when it comes to like anything that's, I know we were talking about more like sexual stuff, but for me in music, and again, that's sort of hypocrisy, because I listen to rap music every once in a while, and there's some things that are said that I'm like, sure. If I read the lyrics, I'm like, it's awful. Yeah. And so I can totally understand listening to the music for the beat 100%. And like, if you took the lyrics out and listened to an instrumental, I'd be vibing with it the whole time. But we can't really separate those two things. I mean, you could listen to instrumental.
I think you can.
You can, but like, it's like one of those things, like a proximity to like a near occasion sin almost, in my opinion, especially with like a lot of the sexual stuff. And for what I would say is most men out there, like
Right.
having been exposed to pornography, because statistics show most men have, it's
Sure.
like that can end up being a trigger, I'm sure, for many men out there.
Right.
But again, that, to your point, different people, different things are okay.
Right.
No, I agree.
think
There's a measure of prudence, but what
Yeah.
what are you going to say?
I guess maybe, okay, so kind of going back to my point, that the Catholic Church doesn't have any teaching on this. It is up to us, and it's up to our discernment and our reason to notice how different music affects us personally, and to stay away from music that we find is detrimental to our souls. If we're finding, okay, this song is a near occasion of sin for me, or this song makes me angry, or this song is, making me think of these other things, I'm going to stay away from that song. That's not a reflection of the intrinsic nature of that song. That's a reflection of your personal struggles with sin, and that music is affecting you in a certain way, in a certain context.
But we all have concupiscence, right? I mean, I'm fine with having a pretty liberal approach to what that line is, right? I think we're all going to agree that my 9-year-old daughter should not listen to filthy, pornographic songs, or songs that really get into that promote suicide or some blasphemous. Right? We all agree that that's the line.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that I think not me as John Henry, but me as a human being drawn towards sin through my fallen nature and concupiscence should avoid certain, not genres, certain content in music.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Alcohol. Should it be banned?
No.
Should certain types of alcohol be banned?
No.
Okay. Alcohol is literally, objectively, a substance that inflames all of the baser passions, objectively. The church has not said anything. You're not allowed to drink alcohol.
Sure.
I think most Catholics that you would talk to would agree that alcohol shouldn't be banned. And there aren't certain types of alcohols that should be banned.
I'm with you.
Should you exercise prudence, moderation, and into certain contexts, like you don't feed alcohol to children?
Right.
Yes. But alcohol literally, objectively, makes you violent, angry, lustful, and like hungry.
Not in moderation, though.
Not in moderation. That is correct. So if the church doesn't have any teaching against alcohol, which literally has objective, observable effects on all people, like if any person were to have too much alcohol, it would have these effects on them. Correct?
Right.
Music is subjective, and it doesn't always inflame these passions. You can't find a song that is going to inflame base passions in literally every human on the planet.
Yeah, but that's like saying that if someone has a really high tolerance for methamphetamine or something, it's so like we shouldn't. I think that I think we're just arguing terms right now, and I'm having a hard time. What are you going to say, Ben?
So my thought so far with this whole conversation is, you keep going back to like the church doesn't have a steadfast teaching about what kind of music is good, what kind of music is bad. I think, at least in my mind, how I take in music, and I group it with art in general, and how I try to orient myself. And even when we had our discussion about our art with I can't remember their names off the top of my head. Yeah. We kind of came down to that art in and of itself is as being a very human thing, is a spiritual thing, that it can only come from the mind of a creature with intelligence and with a will. And so it can only come from the divine at that point. And so it in and of itself has this power over us to invoke feelings. And in that we should be searching out the good, the true, and the beautiful. Because if we are solely looking for these more depraved things, then that is where we are going to orient our lives. And so even if it's not going to be 100% of the time that this terrible song with terrible things, like even if you're a kind of person that can just enjoy the beat of it and not think about it at all, at least I believe that at some spiritual level that is still going to affect you because of the intrinsic spiritual nature of art in and of itself. At least that's my thought.
Yeah. And I think there is a difference between invoking certain feelings, because obviously feelings and the state of our soul are two very different things.
Absolutely.
But that being said, I think that music does have an effect on the soul, because just as, we said, it can uplift the soul, it can bring glory to God, it can bring you closer to God. I feel like, and I think it's objectively true, that if there is language specifically relating to like God using his name in vain, or GD, different things like that, having those kind of things being said in songs, even if you're not singing it, but you're taking it in, like we are receiving those words, and words have power. I think that's something that'd be very dangerous. I'm not going to say that like that is a sin to hear that, because obviously, you're not going to necessarily choose to hear those things, but I think it sets a dangerous precedent that like you wouldn't really want to be playing with fire.
I think what we're really tapping into here is moral objectivity and personal and cultural subjectivity, I guess would be the best way to put it. To bring up pornography and then bad lyrics in the song, or harmful lyrics, spiritual harmful lyrics, was an interesting parallel, but I think it was a bit of a blown out of proportion way to dismiss an argument, although there is a lot of truth to that. Gathering thoughts. There's a lot of ways in which music can be a mirror, but a big part of how you view the content of a song or a painting even is based on the context and the culture specifically. And while you can have things that at one time period are very, very bad or harmful to the general audience, you can also have other ways of performing art in the future in different cultures that for some reason somehow benefit them. To draw a weird parallel, something like Renaissance paintings or Greek sculptures, or even the Sistine Chapel roof. Those have been contents of debate, of course, but there are ways in which you are able to come closer to God through art and through the artistic process without violating sacredness. And while rap lyrics are, I'm trying to paint a bigger picture about how we as human beings stuck in the year 2023 process morals. There are lots of ways that art really is so subjective that in theory, somehow these things could be beneficial, though to the layman and average Catholic, I kind of severely doubt that there's any good conscience you could consume bad lyrics in.
Yeah, and I want to make it super clear that I'm not attacking rap as a genre, because I'm not. In fact, I would argue that I think there's a lot of music that glorifies mental health issues and suicide and self-harm and stuff like that is more detrimental than sexualized or violent lyrics, right? That being said, I still can't agree that it is totally subjective. I don't see that. That doesn't make sense. I would argue that just like pornography, I think it is a clear parallel, that it is that intentionality behind the creator has to do with the morality of the consumption of the medium, right?
To an extent, yes. I really get where you're coming from.
One of the only things that I would push back on there is I totally agree, but then there's also the question of, I think you might have mentioned this, but like almost like the language that the person speaking speaks, right? So like if you want to get into it, it's like the idea that they come from a certain context and they're almost sharing, like you said, music's a mirror is one of the things you said.
Yeah.
Sort of in a way, like as an artist myself, it's like music is a self-portrait. Like I paint a picture and it's myself, and whether that's a beautiful picture, an ugly picture, It is in whatever way something I'm trying to share. And so like that's one of those things. Like there's this song which, it's really rough to hear, but it's this father's apology. It's a rap song. It's his father's apology to his future son for trying to get his girlfriend at the time to have an abortion.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's powerful. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's Joyner Lucas. It's not Ultrasound. Cannot remember. It's on that album though. But or it's on the album where there's like a phone number on it. But it's a really like hard to hear song, because he talks about where he's at in life and like what he's been doing. I think that even though you are getting hit with some, I would say like explicit lyrics and like harsh lyrics, that story is like it's almost contextualized. Sure. But I do think there's a point to say like what the artist is trying to get across, and sometimes that is just like sexually explicit. And I would agree that almost like, okay, if you're making this art to be sexually explicit and to talk about your sexual exploits and that's it, like then that's gonna be an immoral song because you're talking about something that's objectively immoral. If you like mention a piece of your life. And specifically in this case, he's not like proud of it necessarily. But even if like there's just this misguidedness, I don't think that's necessarily a reason to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No, I totally agree with that assessment. I want to make it super clear. That's not what I was saying. The thing that going back to I just don't want to keep spinning the wheels on this argument because I don't think we're going to agree, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
But the parallel I always draw when I'm discussing rap music with guys, I'm not a particularly big fan of rap. I was into some of it when I was a kid. I still think the Eminem Show is one of the best albums of the 21st century.
Yes, really.
I'm
good.
not recommending that on this show.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot of depth there that, is presented in a way that is very, very harsh in a lot of the language. And there's some really negative themes in there. And I'm not going to let my kids listen to it, right? But I always draw the parallel to all the old like outlaw country artists who were singing about the exact same things with a less offensive beat to modern sensibilities. And there's a lot of stuff that's not morally upstanding in there, but the way that it is presented is this tragedy, and none of it is being upheld, and none of it is being like, isn't this great that I did these terrible things? It's the broken, and there's some beauty to that because there's that mirror of the human condition.
Tyler Childers is a really good artist to exemplify that. I mean, he talks about his like experience with like drugs and a lot of things, so it's very heavy. It's very like, for a more mature audience, but like ultimately, like he also talks about like loving God and the way of life he had in that, and like, finding joy and stuff. So there's a lot of good to be had in his music as well.
Absolutely.
Maybe trying to get to a place that we can all agree with. Music is, I believe that it is a gift. I believe that it is something that, yes, it can be used to uplift and worship and all of these different things, but I think ultimately is meant to be enjoyed. It's something that nourishes our soul in a different way than other things do. Meaning that there is really a power to it and a beauty to it. And that comes in many different forms, in many different ways, and different types of music will touch different people. But I do want to agree that there is a way to approach the way that you listen to music that is beneficial for your soul, but I think it's going to be different for everyone.
Right.
There are some songs that my dad can listen to that I can't. There are some songs that I can listen to that I know some of my friends wouldn't be able to.
Right.
And you just have to pay attention to that. Jesus said, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out of him.
Right.
So you don't need to be afraid of the objective sort of aspects of the world or music in particular. You need to be careful about how it's affecting you. Jesus didn't say, if you see something around you that's causing you to sin, get rid of it. He says, if your hand is causing you to sin, cut it off. That's you. If you're like, okay, I see this thing that is causing me to sin, cut it out. That's how you're supposed to handle it. But the approach that I've seen a lot of people take is, I just think it's fear mongering and attributing too much power to it.
Well, and I can say that about so many things with people who have the best intentions, right?
Yeah.
There's this legalism that exists of this. And I agree. That's something that we need to be careful of, because what that does is it tends to cause us to become super insular and circle our wagons. And I use this phrase a lot, but say, no, we're going to totally reject the world and build up the walls around us. And we're going to hide in here, when that is the antithesis of what Christ is telling us to do.
Right.
We can be in the world and not of the world. I'm just drawing that line a little south, I think, of where you are, and saying,
Sure.
But I totally agree with the prudence and the individual and
right.
whatnot. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think it's maybe if like, or maybe really explicit rap music is like tequila or something like that. Like, it's really strong. You can have it in small doses. Like, maybe you have different tolerance levels. I think it is different for different people, but like, you don't want to be only chugging like 2 bottles of tequila a day. Like, it's just maybe I'm not sure.
Wait, I totally missed that point. Did you say you don't want to only be chugging 2 bottles of tequila a day?
That would be a correct fact.
I mean, you definitely don't want to be chugging 2 bottles of tequila.
For instance, if you're finding someone who literally only listens to sexually explicit stuff.
Got you. Okay, now I understand the
but I
analogy.
wouldn't be saying that's something that's intrinsic to the music. I'd say there's something within that person that is struggling and suffering, and maybe they're being attracted to this for the wrong reasons. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily that, oh, this is a sign that, music is bad, it's affecting them in a bad way. It's like, okay, if you're you're consuming something that's overly saturated with this type of thing, you might think, okay, maybe there's something deeper that's
Right.
going on here. But it's within the person. It's a subjective thing.
And I agree with that 99%, except I'm still holding the line, and we only got 5 minutes left, so we won't go into it. That there's still a line that exists somewhere that is not good for human consumption. And we are allowed to disagree here on Honest to God. So before we go over to note cards, you go, Grace. You are all over it.
Professional.
Or over to. Does anybody have any musical hot takes to throw out here at the end? I'm curious.
Harry Styles is overrated.
Oh,
I feel like that's like a. I feel like, is that a hot take though?
I mean, I don't.
I feel like
I don't
he's
know.
super
There are some
popular, so-
intense fangirls.
Okay.
There are.
It's scary.
I feel like amongst like teenage girls, any modern pop artist, like I could say, because I didn't even believe Taylor Swift is overrated.
That was actually my hot take.
Probably
My hot
also
take
overrated.
my hot take is the
Great,
opposite.
great,
My hot
overrated.
take is that Fearless, Taylor Swift's sophomore album, I believe,
My
Fearless,
man.
is not, I'm not going to say perfection, but it is one of the best albums ever released. And
Absolutely.
I can say that as a heterosexual 33-year-old. Yeah. I'm not super into her new stuff. That's a taste thing, but I think Fearless was phenomenal. You a Fearless fan over there?
Oh
Murph?
yeah, big
Heck yeah.
Fearless. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan in general.
Oh, you're welcome.
I used to say Reputation is my least favorite album. I would say the most recent album is my least favorite. I can't remember the name.
Wait, no, I know the name. Midnights. Yeah, you know why I know the name? Because I
like
was
that
out with
one.
Ben's dad at trivia last Thursday, and the bonus question was name the top 10 Billboard whatevers from Midnights, and we got all of them wrong except for partial credit for one because we just wrote the word midnight.
Yeah, honestly, I listened through it. I thought it was sonically interesting for her. I didn't personally love it. I thought it was a little basic towards what other people are doing right now. But that's one man's take. Also, I think this. Well, I don't know if there's a hot take. It's just an unknown take. John Bellion is one of the most influential musicians out there.
Influential.
I feel like that's
Wow,
hot
that's
take.
a hot take.
I feel-
He wrote and produced the last
Awesome.
Justin Bieber album and the new Jonas Brothers album, Tori Kelly's album.
Did not
Been
know
doing
that.
a lot of work. Been doing a lot of work behind the
In
scenes.
my mind.
Ben, Drew, Miriam, you got musical hot takes?
Musical hot takes.
No, not really. I gave up on hot takes a long time ago.
I think my hot take is just my perspective on this issue because
That's fine. I
I
dig it.
don't think I've found a Catholic that completely agrees with me yet.
Yeah, no, I appreciate a little bit of controversy. It's fun. It's good.
Yeah.
Ben, you got to have a musical hot take. You got nothing? Come on.
I mean, no, not really. Not really like a hot take. Just like, basic music tastes. I don't like really pop at all.
Yeah.
The Beastie Boys is pretty great.
I get on a lot of people's nerves because while I really like
like that's a hot take.
the hipster take on country music is country music got really bad after like Garth Brooks in the 80s and then whatever. And here's how I
not
feel.
holding a dig.
I feel like country music. I love that 70s and 80s. I love some Waylon Jennings and David Allan Coe, Charlie Pride. I love it. I'm super into Hank Williams Sr. I like all that stuff. And I can definitely like vibe with some new stuff. Like I'm not going to sit here. I'll talk bad about all the bro country music, but like I'm totally happy to listen to Luke Bryan with my windows rolled down driving in my truck when it's sunny outside all day. Super catchy. But I think the peak was that 80s, 90s, Joe Diffie, Garth Brooks. That was just like
It was
a
good
perfect
stuff.
mix of everything, man. It was
I
great.
still think there's good country that exists. You just have to dig
totally.
for it. It's just not the like station country.
Yep.
It's not radio country.
Old Crow Medicine Show.
Oh, that's good
Fantastic.
stuff.
Big
All
fan.
right. I just thought of my hot take.
Turnpike Troubadours. Tom Childers.
I am not a fan, and I don't like it that people attach their entire identity to liking of specific genre of music.
I agree.
That's fair.
That's
They
a great
say
point.
like,
Yeah.
if
Great
you don't
point.
like this kind of music, we'll never get along. Like,
or
Simmer
a
down.
decade.
Simmer
Yeah,
down.
no.
typically
A
is
lot of people do the
connected to a
decades
genre.
thing, though. It's like,
Typically is connected to a genre.
I only
but
like
still.
AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. Like, okay.
80s music is the only thing that existed.
And I'm a big fan of 80s music, by the way. I
it's
like it
great.
a lot.
I
But like,
wasn't-
there's a lot of great stuff that's being produced right now. Stop not liking things just because it's new. That's lame. That's dumb. Yeah. All right. Note cards. Make it all music related somehow.
Okay.
You want to start, Miriam?
How do these work? I've
Add
never-
the word music somewhere. In Oh, you just read one. You pick one of your
pick
favorites
one.
and then you answer it. It doesn't actually have to be music related.
it doesn't.
I mean, it'd be fun though.
What? Okay.
What's your favorite thing to eat? Guitars.
strings.
You need a second? We can come back. We can do.
What makes you want to study harder? I guess Realizing that I don't know that much about things and wanting to know more.
Okay. All right.
That's a good answer.
All right.
It's like,
All right.
good album.
We'll take it.
I
If
also
you
need
could
a
have
good
any
background playlist.
musical
Absolutely.
gadget, whether it exists or not, what would you love to have? All right, I've thought about this. I'd love to have, like, Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Something along those lines that gives me more capability to play more things at once. So I'd love to play guitar,
That'd be cool.
drums, keyboard.
That'd be cool, but it's the
Full
wrong
band.
answer because the right answer would be the car from Mad Max Fury Road with the guy suspended on the thing playing the electrical guitar, the flames shoot out of it while they're chasing the bad guy or the good guys across the desert.
Oh my God.
That's a good
would be-
answer.
Yeah. All right.
I stick with mine though. Because
Great.
then I could also
Better than mine.
walk around on this.
Okay, my question is, what would your parents never let you do? And I would say specifically my mom, but also just both my parents would not want me to listen to explicit music.
There you go.
On
Okay.
point.
Cool.
What's your favorite music ever? Led Zeppelin 2, baby. That's peak perfection right there. Yeah, now someone's rocking on with me.
From the void.
80s. The void's rocking on. Okay, he's a Led Zeppelin fan. We'll take it.
What you got, Ben?
All right, mine is what musical word would your teachers use to describe you?
Musical word. Sorry, I really appreciate y'all having the word music.
Acoustic.
Man, now I feel left out because I didn't do it.
Crescendo.
You're doing great, Mary. Don't worry about it.
Jazzy.
Oh, definitely jazzy.
Good
I don't know
answer.
how to get music into mine. If you could only watch one television show, oh no, I'm going to do it. If you could only watch one television show for the rest of your life, what would it be? There's only one answer, and it is the Andy Griffith Show.
love
It has something for
that.
everybody. It's so good, and I whistle that to my kids at school every time they're taking a quiz or a test, and they'll get really bothered by it. Yeah. So, all right, guys, we are overtime again. We are really running up the minutes over there, Ben.
That's all right.
everything.
Or is this our last episode was the longest we'd ever done? Are we anywhere close right now?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we can have Shinos Benny if he's here sing "Thank You for Being a Friend" from the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
Please
It'll
fill the
just
time.
take a long time to do
I don't know
it.
if he's there though. It's just so
Yeah.
endless, stretching out
He's
over
out
the dunes to my right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I think I see.
So with that in mind, we'll probably have that coming out as a short soon. We've been promising that for about a year now. But get pumped, guys. Thanks so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen at home. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been Honest to God on AM 1160 The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. Producer Ben,
Signing off.
over and out.